Welcome to my Arcanist Lux guide. In this video, I'll be going over the build, what items and augments to take, how to play the early, mid, and late game, then I'll go into some in-depth positioning examples. But before we get into that, I need to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, which is Buff. It's the perfect app for gamers, as it lets you stack up points you can redeem for prizes while you're just playing your favorite games. Yes, it's completely free, and all you need to do is download and run it in the background while you're playing your favorite games. For most of you, this is going to be TFT, but you also get points for playing League of Legends, CSGO, Warzone, and Valorant, to name a few others. By playing these games, you will get points you can redeem for gift cards for PlayStation, Amazon, Domino's, and Xbox. You can redeem in-game skins, or save up enough points to get you a brand new gaming mouse from companies like Razer or Logitech. All you need to do is let it run in the background and or complete challenges to get more points. It doesn't hurt your performance, so you will still be able to perform at your best while the app is running in the background. Buff is an authorized app by Overwolf, and it runs no malicious malware in the background, and it doesn't collect any data besides the user's game performance and achievements. So click the link in the description or in the pinned comment to download Buff today and to get awesome rewards while playing your favorite games. The comp is not very flexible, as there are only 2 or 3 variations we can run. The core units for this comp are Lux, who's the main damage, Vex, which is the main tank and also an Arcanist, Janna and Yuumi, who provide good CC, healing, and also give us great synergies. This comp is somewhat reliant on Vex 3-star, so if you're not in a spot to go for that, you want to run Braum and Leona alongside of Vex to not lose out on too much frontline. This is the standard level 8 version of the comp. Here we add an Orianna and Taric for more enchanters, Malzahar and Swain get added for more Arcanists. If the Socialite spot is in a bad hex for Lux, then we take out Taric for Jace, Zillion, or another unit based on our augments. The good part about this board is that you only have to hit one legendary unit to make it work, which is Yuumi, and Lissandra can work as a replacement unit until you hit the Yuumi. Another variation of the comp is Academy. This version adds in Yone, Braum, Leona, and Orianna. You can run this version if you get dropped both AP and AD items, as Yone will be a great secondary carry with AD items. The Yone variation has already been covered in depth, so I will link that in the description. Another variation is 6 Arcanists. You want to go for this when you are able to hit Vex 3-star. Her shield will be huge, and therefore she will also be tanking for a long time. If this was a bit confusing to you, or you are a newer player, I'd recommend you just stick to this variation until you get more comfortable with the comp. I will go more in depth on which of these variations you want to run in different situations in the late game part of the video. Lux is our main carry, so we prioritize making items for her first. She has one core item, and that is blue buff. If Lux gets a kill with her spell, she will get 20 mana back. Since she has 60 mana in total, she will be 20 out of 60 mana. With the blue buff, we go up to 40 out of 60 mana. This allows Lux to keep ulting, as she only needs to auto twice before ulting again. Her spell is the main source of damage in this comp, and blue buff increases her DPS on Lux by a giant margin. If you are not able to make blue buff, one option is to go for triple offensive Lux and play 4 Scholars as the mana regeneration, or build Sojin instead of blue buff. Your second and third item want to be both damage items. I'll show 3 combination of the second and third items you should aim for. They want to be IE and JG, Deathcap and JG, or Deathcap and Giant Slayer. Archangels can work as a replacement for Deathcap in all of these item sets. IE and JG deal a ton of damage, as your spell will always crit. This allows us to more consistently get resets off of the backliners and enemy teams. Deathcap and JG give us more damage when the spell crits, but less damage when the spell doesn't crit. Deathcap and Giant Slayer is great to counter tanky comps with a lot of HP. This will let us get resets more often on frontliners, but it will be harder to snipe off and get resets off of the backliners. The reason why a healing item is not necessary for Lux is because we get a lot of healing through enchanters. But if you feel like you need a healing item against your current lobby, Hodge and Gunblade will work fine alongside Deathcap or JG. After we have itemized Lux, we want to make tank items for Vex. The best item for her is Stoneplate. Since we have few frontline units in this comp, this item gives us huge amounts of defensive stats. The other 2 items want to be Bramble, Dragon's Claw, Warmogs, Titans, Zizurad, Ionic Spark, or Redemption. If you are using Braum Leona frontline, all these items work on them as well. Other great items are Morello, which is a perfect utility item as it reduces healing while giving a bit of damage in the process. This makes sure that units aren't healing up from the AoE damage Lux is dealing. This wants to go on Yuumi, Malzahar, or Orianna. Trapclaw is also great, as we can corner Lux without worrying, and Chalice can also be a good item to make if we already have blue buff on Lux. This boosts the damage of our other Arcanists as well, and lets us not be all in on Lux every fight. If you get a spatula, the best emblem to make is Arcanist Spat, while Academy Spat is also usable. Arcanist Janna or Oriana will heal and shield for a large amount, and it also makes it easier to go for 6 Arcanists or even 8 Arcanists in some cases. Academy Spat is okay, but since it uses a tier, we want to make sure we have blue buff first. Mutant Spat can also be used in some niche cases if and only if the mutant trait is mana reduction. 5 Mutant Lux will just perma-spam her ultimate as she only needs 2 autos if she doesn't get a reset. The best augments for this comp are Runic Shield, Cram Session, First Aid Kit, Thrill of the Hunt, and Celestial Blessing. These are great to give Lux a little healing without having to run Gunblade or Hodge, or to give her enough survivability to not need them at all. Some other great augments are Arcanist Heart, Emblem or Soul, Academy Heart, Emblem or Soul, Sunfire Board is great if you couldn't build Morello, and any econ augments will also be great as it makes it easier to hit Vex 3-star, the best one being Trade Sector and Golden Ticket. The carousel priority for this comp is Rod, Tier, Glove, then Chain. Since this comp runs a couple of 2 and 3 cost units, we can find a couple of them already in the early game. The best opener for this comp is Twisted Fate as the item carrier. You prefer to run bodyguards with Poppy and Darius as you can very easily tech in Yorls here for more econ, but Bruiser Frontline also works. Other great openers are 3 Yordles to get you more gold and to maybe hit a Vex early, or hit Heimer early and use him as an item carrier. Katarina with 2 Assassins, any frontline also works with Katarina. Once we have found our comp, we need to make items, and as a general rule, we want to make an item if we have 4 or more components. Some good items to build in the early game that transition well into Lux late game are Blue Buff, JG, Deathcap, Morello, Bramblevest, Ionic Spark, Trapclaw, Dragon's Claw, or Zezirot. Your early game strategy will depend a lot on how good your opener is. In some games you play for a loss streak, and in some games you play for a win streak. But since you can roll at level 7 just fine with this comp, we're not as reliant on win streaking with this comp as others that want to level to 8 ASAP. If you want to learn more about how to play the early game, check out my guide where I go in depth on that subject. After the Krugs round, you should have more direction towards a comp. The general requirements to play Lux is to have at least 1 tier for blue buff, and you also should be thinking about whether you're going for the crit build or raw AP build. If the crit build, then you should have at least 1 glove for JG, and for AP you should have at least 1 rod for Deathcap. The units we have here matter a little, as we definitely prefer to have an Arcanist board with Vex or Swain as the tank, and also having TF or Malzahar as the item carrier also helps us a ton. During the mid game, you always want to hold Lux if you're not playing her, and you want to hold Vex if you're uncontested on Vex 3-star. The other units want to be held if you don't lose eco for holding them. If you're weak in the mid game, typically around 70 to 60 HP and loss streaking, one option is to roll at level 6 to stabilize. We do this to make sure we're able to go level 8 later in the game. How much you roll depends on how strong the lobby is, but try not to go below 20 gold. Some good boards to stabilize with that level 6 are Heimerdinger with Yordles or Innovators, TF with Arcanists, or Malzahar with Mutants. The other option is to keep your loss streak and then level to 7 on stage 3-5 and all in. We do this when we have been loss streaking for the entire early and mid game, and what you end up with will be different every game, but it wants to look something like this. Or it wants to look something like this. During the mid game, it's also important to scout. This is so we can see how many other people are playing Lux. This comp can support 2 to 3 players at max, so if you see more than that going for it, consider pivoting to another comp like Innovators with Seraphine or Heimerdinger carry, or Malzahar Mutants. Another reason to scout is to get an idea of how good Giant Slayer and crit items are in the current lobby. If a lot of people have Bramblevest, then they will negate all critical strike damage from IE and JG. And if there are a lot of Bruiser players, Innovators, or 3-star units, Giant Slayer and Morello will go up in value, and they want to be prioritized more in those cases. If you want to learn more about how to play the mid game, check out my guide where I go in depth on that subject. At stage 4-1, you want to be level 7, and from here you have 2 different options. You can either roll at level 7, or you can go for a fast 8. With this comp, rolling at 7 is not that bad, as we have a few 2 and 3 cost units we can keep late game. Therefore, hitting those 2-star units will give us a good power spike that will let us stabilize. But as always, you prefer to roll at level 8 since you have higher odds for 4 and 5 cost units there, and you also want to hit Yuumi and Victor as well at some point. The games where you roll at 7 are when you're 70 HP or lower, you're loss streaking, or if a lot of other players are rolling down here as well. When rolling down at level 7 on 4-1, it is very similar to rolling down on 3-5. You want to stabilize with a board that looks something like this. Like I said, we usually need at least Vex 2-star and Malzahar 2-star in order to be stable, and hitting a Lux will also help. Since we want to hit 3-star Vex, you want to hold additional copies of her that you hit during your rolldown. The goal from there is to go level 8 on 5-1 and then roll for the rest of your comp there, so try not to roll below 10 to 20 gold as we need the money to go level 8 later in the game. Before you roll at level 8, it is very important to know which units you're looking for. This is where all the previous scouting we have done comes in handy. With the information on what the rest of the lobby is playing, we can more easily tech in synergies and units that benefits us the most against the current lobby. But since this comp is not too flexible, our options are limited. If we need more sustain for Vex, running 4 Enchanters is the play as it will make our frontline a lot stronger and we'll get more healing and shielding on Vex. We can also drop Enchanters to run Braum and Leona if we're not in a spot to go for Vex 3-star or if the lobby is heavy AD. If we need more damage or have bad Lux items, running 6 Arcanist is good to make sure we have enough damage to actually win any fights. Once you've hit your board at level 8, you have 2 different options from there. The first one is to roll for Lux and Vex 3-star. This is the preferred play, as level 9 usually doesn't give us a noticeable power spike with this comp, as it kinda just gives us a force of nature. In order to chase the 3-stars, you need to be uncontested and have enough golden HP to either slow roll or save up for a second large rolldown later at level 8. The second option is to go level 9. It is the best option in cases where you're contested on Vex 3-star, and to go level 9 it will require you to be relatively healthy, typically 40 HP or more, and it also requires you to have 2-starred all your non-legendary units. But the more HP and gold you have, the less 2-stars you generally need, as you will be able to make it to level 9 sooner and also with more gold. The goal from there is to go level 9 on either stage 6-1 or 6-2 in most cases. I usually mention what your board wants to look like if you are high rolling, but since chasing 3-stars is preferred with this comp, a capped board has Vex and Lux 3-star and adds in another Enchanter at level 9. First, let's quickly talk about how Lux's spell works. She targets the farthest away unit, and if she gets a kill, she gains 20 mana back. People will commonly refer to this as resets, meaning if Lux gets a kill, she gets a reset on her spell with the 20 mana she gets. General positioning with this comp looks like this. We have Vex dead center to take most of the aggro, and to let her deal more damage with her spell. Swain and Taric are in the front line to tank with her. Lux is on the right side and she will be primarily threatening the left side. Orianna is positioned to let Yuumi attach on her, and this lets Yuumi CC the other corner in case the enemy team is on the right side. This buys Lux time, which lets her clear the left side backline before moving to the right side backline. Now let's move on to some in-depth positioning examples. Against the first guy, the big threat is Trundle. Swain gets pulled in by the Blitzcrank, Malzahar will get pulled in by Zac once he walks down, Lux is positioned to hit almost the entire enemy team with her ultimate. Yuumi is on Orianna and she will hit Trundle and most of the enemy team with her ultimate. Against the second guy, the big threat is Jhin. Lux is positioned to target Jhin and Caitlyn. Malzahar is shredding the MR of Braum to let Lux get through him quicker. Swain is baiting out the J spell. This allows Vex to not get her armor and MR shredded. Our Janna is positioned to push the enemy frontline back, resulting in our own units walking closer to Jhin and giving him less sniper value. Yuumi is on Orianna to CC the entire enemy team besides the snipers. Against the third guy, the big threat is Samira. Malzahar is getting hooked by Blitzcrank, Yuumi is attaching to Orianna to ult faster, Swain is in the backline to help deal with the Talon jumping over. Lux is positioned to ult Samira, Vex is positioned closer to Sion, so the rest of our team doesn't get hit by his spell. Janna is positioned to ult the units walking down and to get them into Lux's ult range. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Comment down below what video you want me to make next. And if you want to get better at TFT, join the Discord. We got over 5,000 other players there who are hungry to climb. And if you want to get coached by me, the information is over on the Discord server as well. So take care and see you in the next video.